Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to this little corner of the internet. I really hope that you're doing well. If you're new here, welcome. I'm really happy that you stumbled up on in here, and I really hope that you're going to decide to stay. So today's video is going to be a review of Penbook, which is a note-taking app. And if you haven't seen on my channel, I have two other note-taking app videos, one on GoodNotes purely, and then one of kind of a comparison video between GoodNotes and Notability. These two videos have been getting quite a lot of attention and seem to be quite popular, so I've been thinking that it would be good to continue kind of these sort of videos, create a playlist, and it turned out really well because Penbook is sponsoring this video today. Penbook approached me and asked me if I wanted to do a video with them, like a review of their app, and since it was already something I was thinking about doing with other note-taking apps, I thought that this was a perfect opportunity. So thank you, Penbook, for sponsoring this video. So, like every other note-taking video, this video is going to be structured in kind of a question format with a lot of different chapters, and it's going to be a bit long, so if you are just here for one particular thing, I have timestamps down below where you can just jump around as you please. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video and let's start with kind of overall general questions about the app. So as always, let's start with the price. So Penbook is a freemium app, so it has a free version as well as a premium version that is subscription based. So the free version is option 1, so you have access to one notebook at a time where you can endlessly edit it, but you can only have one notebook. Option 2 is you have a 7-day trial where you can basically try the premium version of Penbook, and in that time you can just use all of its features, do as many notebooks as you want. And if you realize that, I actually don't really want to subscribe to Penbook fully, just go back to the free version. All of the notebooks that you've created during that 7-day trial will still be on your app, and you can still edit them as much as you want, but you won't be able to create any new ones. And if you delete one, you won't be able to create one, if that makes sense. And then the third option is you're basically like, oh, I really like the premium version of Penbook and I would like to subscribe to this yearly. So you can pay for a year to use Penbook, and that's $14.99 US, which is the equivalent of 12.19 pounds, and it has the family sharing feature, meaning that the whole family has access to it once one person has paid for the app. And then the fourth option is you're like, oh, I really love Penbook and I really want to have it forever and I don't want to pay every single year because that's going to get expensive. So you can basically pay a one-time fee of $49.99 US, which is about 40.64 pounds. Also has the family sharing feature on that. So that's the price of Penbook. And now let's swiftly move on to what are the compatible devices for this app. So basically Penbook is compatible on iOS, so iPad, and Microsoft, which is really cool because all of the other apps that I've talked about recently, like Notability, GoodNotes, are only compatible with iOS. So at least this one has more people that it can touch, more people that can use it. Microsoft is compatible with it, so that's really cool. And now just before we jump into the app and I show you all the different features and all of that, I think it's important for me to just do a little disclaimer. And if I'm being fully honest with you guys, this is the second time I've filmed this video. I have actually this video fully edited and ready to go on my computer, but I realized that there was a few different issues with the app as I was filming it, like certain icons wouldn't appear and stuff like that. So I reached out to the developer, and basically what happens is that since this app is quite new, it's extremely compatible with the newest version of IpadOS, so the IpadOS 15, and I was still using IpadOS 14, so I was still encountering a few different issues that have not been fixed on IpadOS 14. So if you do use an iPad that is not fully upgraded to the IpadOS 15, you might have a slight little issues. They're nothing major, but just certain icons won't appear, and there are little inconsistencies. But I've already checked, and if you're using it on iPad 15, everything is totally fine and totally fixed. So I just thought that it was important to mention that. But now that I've mentioned that, let's jump into the video. Let's jump into Penbook. Let's see what it looks like, and let's start with the home. Okay, so now we're basically in Penbook's homepage. So I'm gonna do a quick run through of everything that you can see here. So you have the first thing with the settings, so that basically has all of Penbook's settings. So if you want to hide the status bar, auto minimize the toolbar, start on a Sunday or a Monday, I'd rather start my week on a Monday, so that's unchecked. Swipe left and right to turn pages, up and down to see the pages and the home, sync pages previews to iCloud, show seasonal themes. Then there's a section with the calendar, just because we're going to talk about this later in the video, but basically Penbook can sync your iCloud calendar to your Penbook and to the different templates there. So let's say I wanted to only have my differently moi calendar of all the things I need to do for that. I could just uncheck everything and only have that available. So on my kind of templates of Penbook, only my differently moi events would show up. But we'll talk about this a little bit later. But that's settings. Then you have a different button to the right of it, help and about, so anything, if you need help with the app or try to understand how it works a bit more, you can click on that and then get support. And then to the right of that you have the leave a review button. Now we're moving on to kind of the next part of the home. So it's structured in 3 different parts. You have the library, the new, and the featured books. So the library is basically where all of the different notebooks that you have will be stored. Then you have the new button, which is how you create a new notebook. We'll talk about this in a second. And then you have all of the different featured books. The way I would describe this section is basically Penbook is an app that has so many different templates. They have over 1,000 templates to choose from and customize. So it might be a little bit daunting and overwhelming for certain users. So they've actually created notebooks already that you can just click on and start using immediately, that have already been created for you. So if that's how you want to use Penbook, you can just click on these notebooks, or you can create your own notebook and then fully customize it as you please. But basically they have a lot of different options, starting with the Pixel Bud notebook. So that's for like pixel art sketchbooks, and they're 64 different pages. Then you have the standard one, which is just lined paper. You have grid paper, blank paper. You have 2 different planners, so the Everything Wear planner, which is like has already been created for you and assembled, but you can also do that on your own. You have the Yes Day planner as well. You have a notebook, you have dotted gridded paper, and then you have the Brain Kid one, which is kind of like gridded paper, but the way it's described, it feels like a little bit more from maybe like math, geometry, things like that. But basically you can choose out of those pre-made notebooks to use. And then the last section of the homepage is basically the current notebook you're in. So currently, like, I'm on the test notebook. So the first page here with written the 24th of June, we're definitely not the 24th of June, is the kind of the first page of that notebook. So if I click on it, I'm now in the test notebook. Let me go back to the home. So that's the home for you. So now let's move on to how do we create a new notebook. So to create a new notebook, you basically have to click on the create new button here. Then it will show you like this sort of like pick your vibe thing, where you can choose the font. I prefer Avenue. And then you can choose the color of your margin with the color of your paper. I quite like a red margin with white paper. Then you click on continue. And then you can choose your starter pages, so what sort of like template you want to start with. I'm going to start with lined notes. And then you can choose the cover of your paper as well as the title. And I'm going to use this cover and I'm going to call it test, because that's going to be where I'm going to be explaining all of the different features of Penbook. It's going to be in this little book. So now we basically have 2 different notebooks, both called test. So right now I'm on this one, and if I click on the pug, it now switches places, and now I'm in the other notebook at the bottom. Okay, so that's basically how you create a notebook. If you want to customize your cover a little bit more, you can actually click on the 3 dots, click on edit, and then you're faced with this little page that has browse covers and design. So browse cover, you have cover ideas at the bottom. You can also change the name of your notebook, and then you have design here, where there's still other like images that you can choose from to customize your cover paper, so like a lot of different animals. And then you can also change the color of like the rim of the paper. So let's say right now it's like gray, and if I want it to be red, I could just choose red, and now it's red on the side, and I can just save that. Okay, so that's basically all of the features talked about in the home. Now let's move on to actually diving into the test book with the flowers, and let's talk about all the different buttons and the different tools. So we're going to do this in an organized fashion, and we're going to first start with the buttons on the top right hand side. So there's 4 different buttons. The first one, kind of like the bookshelf one, if you click on it, you're basically back to the home page. The second one here is like the little paper with the little settings button. So if you click on it, you're basically in the template section of the app that we're going to talk about in more detail later, where you can customize all of your different templates and all of your different notebooks. We're going to do that later, but that basically brings you to the template section and customizable section of this app with all the different live paper. Then the third button here is kind of like the share button. So if you share that, basically that shares one page at a time in a PNG format. And then the last button, which is a little arrow at the top, if you click on it, it basically makes all the different buttons and tools disappear apart from this little eraser here. And then if you click back on it, it makes everything reappear. Now that we've done that, let's move on to the buttons on the right hand side, and let's start with the top chunk. The top chunk is basically the tools that are available to you to kind of write and erase and select things on the page. So we have 5 different sections in this area. We have the tool palette first, which has like currently this like black pen and the plus button. Then we have the eraser, then we have the selection lasso, then we have the ruler, and then we have the tweezers. So we're going to first go to the tool palette first. And so right now I've selected a black pen, but I can create up to 6 different tools in this section. So I'm going to create all of them now. And right now they're literally all of them are the same, but I can customize them and change them. So if I click on the 3 buttons, I basically have access to now creating either a pen, a highlighter, or a pencil. And each of these tools, so pen, highlighter, and pencil, have the same kind of customizability options. You have kind of choices of colors in rows like this that are kind of pre-made for you. Or if you want, and you want to have a specific color and just create your own, you can go to the bottom in this little circle here and select the color you want. So let's say I want to create a red pen, I can do that. I can either do it with this grid format, I can change the opacity, or I can change, use the spectrum or sliders. I can also create presets at the bottom here to create a new color like that. So if I have colors that I'm going to use often, I can create presets at the bottom here. In this section you also have the different thicknesses, so we'll explore those in a second. You have an immediate return to black or white and an opacity cursor at the bottom. You also have a bin icon, which is basically if you're not going to use this tool anymore, you don't want it anymore, you can just delete that. So if I delete that, the plus sign reappears and I can just create a new one. So now let's dive deeper in each one of them. So I'm going to first talk about the pen. So I'm going to do the different thicknesses of the pen in black. So that's the smallest thickness, that's the second smallest, that's the third, that's the fourth, and that's the fifth. One thing to know about the pen is that it's pressure sensitive. So this is with very little pressure, this is with much more pressure. You can see a slight difference in thickness. Now I'm going to talk about the highlighters. I'm going to choose like an orangey color. So that is the smallest thickness, second smallest, third, fourth, and fifth. The highlighter is also pressure sensitive, but it's not going to impact the thickness, it's going to impact the vibrancy of the color. So that is very little pressure, and that is more pressure. You can see the difference in the vibrancy of the color. As well, the way you hold the pen on the paper, so if you hold the pen at different angles with the same like thickness, so I'm going to say on thickness number 3, you can see a difference in size of the thickness. So that's completely perpendicular to the paper, that's kind of a bit more slanted, and that's even more slanted. You can see 3 different thicknesses as well. Okay, now let's move on to the pencil. The pencil, we're going to go to this little pink color and we're going to do the thicknesses as well just to show them to you. So that's the smallest, that's the second smallest, that's the third, fourth, and fifth. As well, this is also pressure sensitive. If you press harder, the color will be more vibrant. So that's me with less, that's me with more. You can see the pressure difference. Also, if you change the slant of the pen, just like the highlighter, it will also change how thin or thick it is. So that's fully perpendicular, that's a little bit more slanted, that's a little bit more slanted as well, and even more. You can see kind of a difference in how thick it gets, just like if you were using a normal pencil. So that's the tool palette for you. I've described all of the features in the tool palette. Okay, so now let's talk about the feel of the pen. So I've used this note-taking app when I did the previous video, and then a few different times since then. And whenever I write, I don't have anything like negative to say really, apart from like right now, it seems a little bit laggy, but it's the first time that I've had this problem, and I think it's just because I'm currently outside, it's 35 degrees. I think my tablet is also like, you know, filming everything and it's kind of overheating, but I've never had any issues in the past, so I'm really thinking that this is like a problem with the heat right now, because I can really feel that it's really hot. So I'm trying to get this video done as quickly as possible. One thing that I would say is that the feel of writing on this tablet is closer to a Notability writing feel than a GoodNotes feel, if that makes sense to you. But now I think we can move on to talking about the eraser. So the eraser in Penbook has 2 different settings. So it has, if you click on the 3 dots, it has either a pixel eraser or an object eraser. So object eraser erases entire strokes one at a time. So 1, 2, 3, you know, all of these are erased. And then pixel eraser is basically erasing pixel by pixel like that. it doesn't have a choice of thickness. Then the lasso tool is basically a tool that you use to move objects around on the page. So let's say I wanted to move all this pink section to the top right hand. I can just select all of that and then move it up here. I can, if I click on it, I can also cut, copy, delete, duplicate, or insert a space above. Then we can move on to talking about the ruler. So the ruler is basically a ruler. So the way you control the degree of how the ruler looks like on the paper is with 2 fingers, and you can just move it about and it shows you the degree on the page. So let's say I wanted to do a little like triangle situation. I take the black pen, bam, then I would change it to, I don't know, 45 degrees. And then change it to 45 degrees that way, and then I would have a perfect triangle like that. And the ruler can coexist with other tools, so I can have both the ruler selected and the eraser, or both the ruler selected and the pencil. So let's say I wanted to create another line in between and wanted it to be red, I could do that. But that's the only thing that can do that, because every time, let's say I go from the pencil to the eraser, the pencil is now not selected anymore. And then the last tool is the tweezer tool. I'm going to talk about it in just a second because it makes more sense, but basically the tweezer tool is used to move about objects on the page, not a pencil, highlighter, or pen. It's used to move around like a text box, an image, anything that's not pencil, highlighter, or pen is moved with the tweezer, but I'll show you that in action in a second. So we've done all of the different tools on the right hand side, the top chunk, and now let's move on to the tools on the right hand side, but the bottom chunk. There's 4 of them there, and let's go do that. I'm gonna have some water first though. So let's take on the first button, kind of the photo image. So with that, you can insert photos either from your camera, so I can give access to my camera right now and then take a photo of, for example, the script that I have here, or I can add a photo from my actual camera roll. So for example, this, I could have it here, make it bigger, make it smaller. Do you see how the tweezers are now selected? Because when you click on the tweezers, I can move this about, I can make it smaller, I can make it bigger, stuff like that. Going back on the tool, I can take, let's say I went on Safari, copied a photo, I could paste it from the clipboard on this as well. Or Penbook has a big selection of different stickers. So for example, I could go on the retro computer palettes and, you know, for example, select that, make it and stick it somewhere on the paper. Again, the tweezers have been selected here. Make it bigger, make it smaller, make it disappear. Then the next tool from the bottom is the washi tape tool. So you have a lot of different types of washi tape. So you can have, let's say I want a mint green one, and you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, and you can delete it again from the tweezer section. The lasso tool does not work on objects that are not pencil, pen, or highlighter. It's with the tweezers that you move objects, okay? And then you have the text box button, which basically has a lot of different presets here. So you can have a transparent note, a pink sheet. I'm gonna choose the Salmonite. So when you do that, it basically brings you up on a typing screen on the left-hand side. So the typing screen is basically where you can write whatever the note is. So maybe it's gonna be to do today. If you click back on the page, so of your notebook, just here for example, it just puts the note here. And then if you click back on it, so let's say if you click on the pink space, you brought back to the typing screen. Now let's talk about maybe a bit more about the actual typing screen and the different functionalities of that. So you have the back button that makes the typing screen go away. You have this little double arrow button that makes the typing screen full screen, and then here it brings it back to like smaller. And then the third button here, like 2 different pages. So basically, let's say I decided to put the photo on page 3, but actually I wanted it to be on page 2. I can click on that and decide to put it on page 2, and so now it's not on page 3 anymore. So I'm just going to continue doing this on page 2. Click on this, typing screen appears again. Then you have the button to choose the color of the actual note. So right now it's this pinkish color, but I could also make it orange or yellow or green. I'm going to keep it kind of the salmon color. Then you have the actual color of the text. So right now it's black, but again, you could choose any single thing. You also have you could create presets at the bottom. Notice how the presets that I created earlier with the pen are maintained throughout. So the kind of orange color or the green color that I chose are still there, but I'm going to keep it black. Then you can choose the font family as well as the font size. So right now it's marker felt 20. And let's say I'm like, I really like this sort of like preset notes thing. I want every time I like type something in a note format, I want it to be with a pink background and this like font in this size, you can do that. So you can basically favorite it, and then every time you click on the type button here, you have your preset here, so that's going to be written in the same format, if that makes sense. Okay, so then the last button here is the scratch pad. So that basically brings up a different area that you can write on your page. So let's say here I was doing a math problem and I was like 1 times 1 divided by 2 plus 4 equals whatever, and I was like, oh, I don't know how to do this, I'm struggling. I could just write it on the scratch pad here, so that's 4.5, and I was like, okay, that's the answer. I did it on the scratch pad. Now I can actually write it here, 4.5. Now that we've done all of that, let me go to a blank page. I'm going to go on page number 4, and we're going to talk about templates for a second. So we're going to go back on the second button at the top here, and we're going to get into the templates section. So on the template section, you can have at the top an auto date. So let's say like right now we're the 12th of July, it's going to automatically date every single day, or you can have just the date of the day today, and it's always going to stay that day. Even tomorrow if I come back, it'll still be 12th of July. Or you can have no date. I quite like having the date of the day just to remember when it was written. Then you can choose the format, so you can have portrait or landscape. You can choose the size of the paper, so you have a letter format, you have A4, or you have device. And then the next thing that's important to realize with this app is that this app has so many different templates, but that can still be customized to your taste. So the page option section is where you can customize the existing templates to your taste. So for example, right now, this page here with like the margin in the middle, the black lines, is a template, but I can customize this to my liking. So if I click on page options, I can change the font, so I'm going to keep it on Avenue. I can change the color of the paper and the margin color. So like, let's say I want it to be kind of yellowy paper with a purple margin. I can change as well the line and the text colors. So right now they're black, but I could make them blue if I wanted, or green, or whatever color again that I can choose here. Again, notice that the presets are still maintained throughout the whole app. That red and that green are still there. So I can make it red lines. I'm going to keep it black because we're not going to go too funky. And then I can change the density of the lines, which is basically the line spacing. So I can go all the way from low to this one, to this one, to this one, to medium, to this, or high. Okay, and then you can choose where the margin is. So right now it's in the middle, but it could also be no margin, leading, left, middle, right, or trailing. I'll just leave it in the middle. So that's all the customizability options you have with this singular template. And then now let's talk about all of the different templates at the bottom. So there's so many different ones, and I can't go through all of them because this video would be so long and very boring, to be fair. So they have the first section here, which is Showcase, which is basically all the templates that they think are the most important and the coolest ones that they have. So they have Genze, Punch Card, Saturday, Bureau, Polar Winds, Full Page Isometric, 2 points with Path, iPhone with Notes. It's kind of like a mixture of all of the different sections that they do have in this app. So they have Lead, they have one from the Yes Please planner as well. Then here you have your favorites. So let's say if I love this template, I can click on the heart and then it'll show up in the favorites. And then you have all the different sections of template that they have in here. So they have the first section, which is blank, so unintentionally titled, margined, framed, office use only, foundation, all of these ones here. Again, you can, if I click on this one, I can go onto page options and then customize it even more with the paper and with the margin and stuff like that. Then they have the ruled section with the ruled paper, all of these different types, tall boy, two-step, group project, come along now, all of that. Again, page options, you can customize this. Then they have the graph section, classic, like all of the different ones, like minimetric, for example, for geometry. All of these different ones, just going through them like that. Then they have the dotted paper, so again, a lot of different ones. Then they have the cross ones, like this. Then they have the to-do section, which is like if you're trying to create a notebook that's more of a planner sort of thing and you want to have a to-do list every single day, you could add a to-do list. So they have a lot of different to-do list options. And again, if you click on here, you can go to page options and then change the color, change the text and stuff like that. Then they have a habit tracker section. So again, if you're trying to make a planner and you want to have a habit section every single week, you can do that. and then just choose which habit tracker fits your needs. You can again go to page options, customize that. Then they have the daily template, so like every single day you could like just add a new page, or if they have weekly, have a lot of different weekly options, or they have a monthly one, so like a calendar format like that. Then they have yearly, so they have like, for example, years that are vertical like that, or there's also horizontal weeks that exist as well. You have academic papers, or Cornell. You have French ruled paper, which is crazy because I'm French and I've used French ruled paper my whole life, and even going to the UK, you can't find ruled paper in shops. So the fact that this app has a template for ruled paper that you can customize, you know, with the different types of densities is just crazy to me. I just love it. Then you have tables, again, very large variety of them. You have scientific templates like that, like log graphs and a lot of things that I don't know how you would use because I stopped math too early for that. Then you have isometric paper like this. Then you would have perspective paper for architecture and like arts and stuff like that. You would have developer paper, so if you're trying to create an app or like a case or anything like that, you can use those templates. Have storyboard papers as well. You have engineering papers, you have chemistry papers, you have staff papers, so for music, again, these could be customized, different, how many bars do you want, how many linked do you want, and stuff like that. Tablature papers, and then Euro rack as well, which I don't really know what you would use them for, but I'm sure somebody will understand what that's used for. But basically, my point here is that there are thousands and thousands of templates, and that is why they call their paper life paper. It's because you can really customize almost every single feature of that paper and change it to your liking, and that's why it's called life paper. So that's all the different templates they have. The last thing I want to talk about in the template section is their calendar function. So basically, Penbook can sync your iCal to your actual notes. So especially if you're trying to create a planner, they can sync your iCalendar to the actual template. So you can see, for example, here that all of these different things here are like actual events in my iCal calendar that I like added there, and they're also appearing on here. So it means that I don't have to, if I'm trying to use this app as a planner, I don't have to manually be like, oh, I wrote this in my calendar, let me bring it to this paper on my iPad. It will already be there and it'll automatically sync. So let's say here I have like abstracts, and that's like a meeting, for instance, and I'm like, oh, remember to wear like yellow because they told me to wear yellow that day. I could literally write here yellow, you know, and so I can add information to the already existing event that has been synced from my calendar, which I think is a like tremendous gain of time, and you're not wasting time by like putting it from one place to the other because it automatically syncs. And I think that's an amazing feature of Penbook. So yeah, that's the calendar function. And now that we've done that, let's now move on to talking about page management. So page management section is the buttons on the bottom left hand side. So you have these little arrows that you can click that basically switches you from page to page. You can click on those pages or just swipe with your hand. If you click on, let's say, number 1, it brings you to this section like that where you can see your pages a little bit more. You can bookmark them and then see them in the bookmark section. You can, if you long press on them, you can either copy them or delete them, and then you can also create new pages. If you click on organize here, it brings you to the page organizer. So in here, you can kind of see all of the different pages you have in your notebook. If you click on the little squares, they can make all of the pages a bit smaller, so you have a bigger ensemble view, especially if you're creating like a big planner. You would want them to have smaller pages so you can see all of them, or like more of them in one go. If you click on the edit, you can basically change the name of the book. Right now it's called Test, but I could call it Test 2, for example. And then you have all the different pages. If you click on the 3 lines, you can actually change which page comes first and stuff like that. You can also remove pages, so like that, or click done and then you're back to the organizer. You can also search for terms, so they have like hand recognition, so like hello is on page 4, for example, and then you could just click on page 4, and right now everything has been done on the 12th of July, so you can even like make your search more precise to like the actual date. So let's say you're like, I know I wrote something specific on the 2nd of July, and you can just put it from the 2nd to the 2nd, I'm searching for this exact word. So now let's maybe talk quickly in this section how you export things here. So you have the share button here, as I said, that exports it page by page but in a PNG. If you go back to the home, you can also export the whole book as a PDF, but it's only the whole like notebook as a PDF. Now let's move on to the last section, which is gestures. So what are the different gestures that we can use in this app? So you have the undo redo gestures. So let's say I'm gonna write 1, 2, 3, 4. If I want to undo, you just tap with 2 fingers, and if I want to redo, you tap with 3 fingers. And then shape recognition, because they do have shape recognition in here, is like, let's say I do a circle. If I long click with 3 fingers, it'll turn that into a proper circle. Let's say I do a square. Last time it didn't work with triangles in the last version that I was using on my iOS 14. Let's see if it works with triangles. No, it doesn't seem to be wanting to work with triangles. Let's see, an oval. Yeah, oval works. Well, the shape recognition exists, but might not be as advanced as in other apps, for example. That's what I would say. And the last little few questions that would need to be mentioned. So how do you sync your notes on this app? They have a syncing option here. You can sync page previews to your iCloud, or as well you can also like export as a PDF and keep it that way. And then the last question that we have here is, does this app drain the battery? So this question, I don't know how realistic and how like true my answer is, because this iPad has been in the heat right now. I think I started on 100% battery, something like that. I'll put on the screen if it was something different. So it drained by about 23% battery, more or less, but it has been in the heat. I'm also recording this whole screen as I'm talking, so my iPad is going through a lot, so I don't know how reliable that answer is, but it doesn't seem to be draining it that much. So I think we're basically done with everything. Let's move on to my parting thoughts and what I think about this app as a whole. So overall, I really think that I really like this app. This app is really good. The pen feel is great. There's nothing that was iffy and problematic about it. The 2 things that I would say to be just wary about is if you're using this app not on iPadOS 15, you might find some incompatibilities. So for instance, when I used it the first time, the text box button, so this one, does not appear on the app. It just is not there. You can still click it, but it's not there. And then on the typing screen, this button can be clicked, but then the button to go back to the smaller typing screen is not clickable and doesn't really exist, so that's a bit difficult. And the other thing that I would say is like the shape recognition of this app is not the most developed, it's not the best, but are you really using this app for shape recognition? I don't really know. But on the way this app can be used, it has so many different templates that it can be literally be used for any single purpose that you would want to. If you're doing chemistry and you need chemistry paper, if you're doing math, if you're doing architecture, if you're doing music, like anything really could just literally be used for anything, because of how customizable it is and how you can literally make it your own. And I think that is the unique selling point of Penbook and the reason why people would want to use this app. The other reason why you would want to use this app is if you're creating a planner, you can literally create your planner from scratch as you want to. It's kind of, you have like, you know, habit trackers and to-do lists and daily paper and monthly and weekly and all of that you can create exactly how you want your planner to look like without going through the big effort of, you know, doing a bullet journal, for example. And the fact that it syncs to your calendar makes you gain all that extra time of not having to bring events from one place to another. It's just completely synced. And my personal use to how I would use Penbook is I've been thinking for a while that I wanted to have like a planner situation digitally, and so I definitely think with the whole customizable options of Penbook, that would be the app that I would turn to do that. So if I still maintain like next year that I want to have a digital way of planning my life, I will definitely use Penbook for that. Or if I'm looking for very specific papers and stuff like that, I would go to Penbook. But overall, I really like Penbook. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Again, thank you to Penbook for sponsoring this video. You did a really great app. And yeah, I'm going to go have lunch now because I'm quite hungry. I'm going to start editing this video because there's, again, an hour of footage, but hopefully the video will be shorter. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share this video with other people that could benefit from it as well. And without further ado, I'm going to go, and I'm going to say goodbye to you guys, and I'm going to see you guys next week. Bye, guys!